I need a husband by Monday. The young nurse said it so calmly that the hospital director almost thought he had misheard her. She wasn't proposing. She wasn't in love. She wasn't joking. She had exactly 4 days before a family evaluation that could determine whether she kept custody of her little sister. The director looked up from his paperwork, then asked the only question that mattered. Why me? She didn't need a rich man to rescue her. She needed one ordinary-looking man to sit beside her on Monday and prove her little sister still had a home. At 2:17 inches the morning, Lena Brooks sat alone in the nurse's break room at Saint-Denis, Catherine's Children's Hospital, eating expired peach yogurt with a plastic spoon and pretending the email on her phone had not just rearranged the rest of her life. Her scrubs were printed with tiny giraffes. One of them had a smear of formula across its neck. Her hair had escaped its bun in tired, frizzy strands, and beneath her eyes were 2 dark crescents no concealer could have handled even if she had owned concealer, which she did not, because rent had been due 3 days ago. The email came from Nora Fields, the social worker assigned to Maddie's case. Home assessment scheduled for Monday, 9 a.m. Lena read the words once, then again, then a third time, because panic made everything look unreal. Attached beneath the appointment notice was a summary of concerns. Young age, single applicant, demanding work schedule, limited living space, student loan debt, insufficient documented support network. Insufficient support network. Lena almost laughed. It came out closer to a cough. She had been Maddie's support network since Maddie was born. She was the one who remembered that Maddie hated yellow blankets because their mother had used one during chemo. She was the one who knew Maddie would eat carrots only if they were called Stegosaurus spikes. She was the one who had held her little sister in a funeral home bathroom while Maddie whispered, "Does this mean I'm extra orphaned?" But none of that fit neatly into a government form. If Monday went badly, Maddie could be sent to Elaine Porter in Tacoma. Elaine had a house with a guest room, a husband who owned matching luggage, and a calendar that did not include 12-hour shifts or emergency call-ins. Elaine also barely knew that Maddie slept with a plastic triceratops under her pillow because monsters were less scientifically documented than dinosaurs. The break room door opened. "Doctor." Caleb Warren stepped in, still wearing his white coat, his tie loosened but not removed, because apparently even exhaustion respected him too much to rumple him. He was director of pediatric services, which meant he was the kind of man who could make an entire hallway go quiet by lowering his voice. He stopped at the coffee machine and looked over. Lena quickly wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. Too late. Caleb's expression shifted not into pity, exactly, more like concern trying to find the appropriate procedural category. "Do you need clinical support?" he asked carefully, "or practical support?" Lena stared at him. Then she held up the yogurt. "I need a miracle with availability on Monday." Caleb blinked. "That's outside my department." Something in her cracked then. Maybe it was the hour. Maybe it was the email. Maybe it was the way he didn't immediately say, "You poor thing," which would have made her fall apart completely. "I need a husband by Monday," she said. Caleb froze with his hand on the coffee pot. For 3 full seconds, the only sound was the machine making an angry wet hiss. Then he said, "Why me?" Lena opened her mouth, but before any explanation came out, Tasha Kim passed the doorway, backed up, and leaned in. "If this is a proposal," Tasha said, eyeing the yogurt, "I feel strongly it needs flowers, or at least dairy that hasn't technically expired." "Tasha," Lena warned. "No, I support love. I just don't support botulism." Caleb set down his cup very slowly. "You're asking me to marry you?" "No." Lena rubbed both hands over her face. "Not really. Not legally. Not in any way that involves vows or joint taxes or whatever terrifying binder you probably already have about marriage." "I don't have a binder about marriage." Tasha squinted. That sounded rehearsed. Lena ignored her. "I need someone at the assessment. Someone stable. Respectable. Someone who can show I'm not alone." Caleb's face changed again. This time, the concern became something harder. You want me to lie to a social worker. I want you to help me keep my sister. By lying. Lena stood too fast, the chair scraping behind her. You think I don't know it's wrong? You think I woke up tonight and thought, great, let's commit emotional fraud before breakfast? Lena, no. The system is measuring me by things I haven't had time to build. A spouse, a big apartment, a normal schedule. I have been packing Maddie's lunches, signing her school forms, taking her to therapy, buying her shoes, getting her through nightmares. But on paper, I'm just a tired 26-year-old nurse with debt and no husband. Caleb didn't answer. And because he didn't answer, Lena hated him a little for listening. Before either of them could speak again, her phone rang. The neighbor's name flashed across the screen. 10 minutes later, Maddie was in the pediatric observation room, small beneath a hospital blanket, her breathing sharp. I don't want to go to Tacoma, Maddie gasped. I'm sorry. I woke Mrs. Bell up. Don't send me away. Lena gently pulled the yellow blanket off and replaced it with her own scrub jacket. I know. You're okay. Her voice softened into something Caleb had never heard from her at work. Alphabet fruit. Start with A. Maddie hiccuped. Apple. That's my girl. B. Banana. Caleb stood near the door, forgotten and watching. There was nothing polished about Lena in that moment. Her hair was a disaster. Her shoes were untied. Her voice shook on every third word, but she knew exactly how to bring Maddie back to herself, piece by fragile piece. By C, Maddie's breathing had slowed. By D, her hand had found Lena's. By T, she was asleep. Lena stayed bent over her, one hand still on the child's back. Caleb understood then that Lena was not ideal on paper, but she knew Maddie the way a house knew the footsteps of the child who lived inside it. Outside the room, Lena looked at him with raw, exhausted hope. He hated what he had to say. I won't pretend to be your husband. Her face closed. But I'll come Monday, he added. As myself, as a doctor who knows you, as your director, and as someone prepared to tell the truth about what I've seen. The truth may not be enough. Maybe not. His voice was quiet. But if we start with a lie, Maddie is the one who has to live inside it. Lena turned away from him. She was furious because he had refused her, more furious because he was right. By Saturday morning, Caleb Warren arrived at Lena's apartment with a leather satchel, 2 coffees, and a binder so aggressively organized it looked like it had been raised by attorneys. Lena opened the door barefoot, wearing leggings, an oversized Seattle Mariners sweatshirt, and the expression of a woman who had slept 3 hours and lost a fight with laundry. You brought homework, she said. I brought structure. She took the binder from him and flipped through the colored tabs. School schedule, medical history, emergency contacts, meal plan, transportation, therapy options. This is, she said, pausing at a laminated calendar, sexy in a deeply alarming administrative way. Caleb looked startled. Thank you. Behind her, Maddie peeked around the kitchen doorway, clutching a plastic stegosaurus. Are you the fake husband? No, Caleb said immediately. Candidate? No. Hospital boss man? That one is accurate. The apartment was small, but not empty. That was the first thing Caleb noticed. It had the crowded warmth of people trying hard. Maddie's drawings on the fridge, a sagging couch with a dinosaur blanket, bills tucked beneath a coloring book, sneakers by the door, pediatric textbooks stacked beside crayons. The kitchen table was also Maddie's homework station, Lena's paperwork desk, and apparently the place where a family of toy velociraptors had established government. Caleb set the coffees down carefully. I thought we could begin with a support network. I thought we could begin by pretending my sink doesn't look like a crime scene. The sink did look grim. They began there. By noon, Tasha arrived carrying cleaning supplies and the emotional confidence of someone who had already decided everyone else was doing life wrong. She spotted Caleb reviewing Lena's lease and grinned. Wow, You have divorced Uncle Energy, and you're not even an uncle. I'm divorced, Caleb said. Tasha pointed at him. See? The universe loves consistency. Caleb tried to help by grocery shopping. He returned with quinoa, unsweetened almond milk, organic fiber cereal, baby carrots, and something called ancient grain puffs. Maddie inspected the bags with grave disappointment. Do you know children are people? She asked. Or do you think we're show horses? Lena laughed so suddenly she had to lean against the counter. Caleb looked down at the groceries. The cereal has 8 grams of fiber. That's a threat, Maddie said. So Maddie took charge of breakfast for lunch and announced Caleb would now prove his dad energy by making pancakes. I'm not applying for dad energy, he said. That's what people with weak dad energy say. Caleb measured the flour with the precision of a pharmacist preparing chemotherapy. He leveled the teaspoon. He checked the batter consistency against a recipe on his phone. He asked whether golden brown had an accepted clinical range. The first pancake emerged narrow, pale, and bent at one corner. Maddie stared. It looks like a medical device. Lena covered her mouth, but the laugh escaped anyway, bright, helpless, real. Caleb looked over at her, flour on his sleeve, and something in his face softened. It wasn't attraction in the obvious way. It was quieter, more dangerous. He looked as if he had discovered that making her laugh mattered to him. The day moved in small domestic pieces. Lena folded Maddie's clothes while answering a text from the charge nurse. She taped a school reading calendar to the fridge. She slid an overdue electric bill under a coloring book before Maddie could notice. Caleb noticed, but he did not offer money. He did not say, "I'll fix it." He only asked, "Would it help if we added financial planning to the binder?" Lena glanced at him, wary. "We," he clarified, "meaning you decide what goes in. I write neatly." That was the first moment she truly looked at him differently. Then Elaine called. Her face appeared on Lena's phone, composed and well lit, with a tasteful living room behind her. "I don't want to upset you," Elaine said, which Lena had learned usually meant upset was exactly what came next. But Maddie would have her own room here, a stable school district. "I'm home most afternoons. Children need consistency, Lena. Love isn't enough if you're always at the hospital." Lena's hand tightened around the phone. Elaine wasn't cruel. That made it worse. Cruel people were easier to dismiss. After the call, Lena stood in the kitchen, staring at nothing. "She's right," Lena said. "A 3-bedroom house beats the truth." "No," Caleb said. "A 3-bedroom house beats pretending everything is fine. That's different. She has space. I have a binder and panic. You have history, attachment, a care plan. We build the rest. She'll win. Not if we make your support real." He opened the binder. Tasha, Mrs. Bell next door, after-school program, a revised shift schedule, a counselor for Maddie, letters from her teacher, me, within appropriate boundaries. Lena gave a bitter little laugh. "Appropriate boundaries don't look impressive on a form." From the hallway came Maddie's voice. "If you're pretending to be family," she asked, "does that mean you can stop pretending whenever you get tired?" Lena went still. Maddie stood there in socks, small and pale, her stegosaurus pressed to her chest. Caleb crouched until he was level with her. "I'm not going to pretend to be your dad," he said, "or Lena's husband. That would be confusing and unfair." Maddie's chin trembled. "But I can be a safe grown-up who shows up when he says he will. After Monday, too, if you want that." Maddie studied him. "Even if your pancakes are bad? Especially then. I need supervision." That night, Caleb stayed to fix the loose bookshelf in Maddie's room. He did a terrible job. The shelf leaned slightly left, as if burdened by private sorrow. Maddie patted it. "It's an emotionally supportive shelf." Lena laughed again. And for the first time, her little apartment did not feel like evidence against her. It felt unfinished, but maybe not insufficient. By Sunday afternoon, Caleb returned with revised schedules, 2 reference letters, and a solemn promise not to buy cereal with aggressive fiber content. Maddie met him at the door holding a clipboard. "You have advanced to the next stage," she announced. Caleb looked at Lena. Lena lifted both hands. "I do not control the committee." "What committee?" "Me," Maddie said. "The Husband Energy Committee. I'm still not applying to be a husband." "That's okay. The committee accepts reluctant candidates." Caleb removed his coat carefully. "That sounds legally troubling." The test began with dinosaurs. "Name 3 dinosaurs with 3 or more syllables," Maddie ordered. Caleb, who had clearly prepared, straightened. "Ankylosaurus, Parasaurolophus, Pachycephalosaurus." Maddie narrowed her eyes. "You Googled." "I studied. Same thing but nerdier." Next came the missing sock challenge. Caleb failed immediately. He checked the laundry basket, under the couch, and once inside the freezer because Maddie said creative thinking matters. The sock was eventually found inside a toy volcano. "Low domestic instincts," Maddie said, making a mark on her clipboard. Then came pancakes. Caleb's second attempt was better than Saturday's, but still unsettlingly rectangular. Maddie poked it with her fork. "This pancake has hospital corners." From the stove, Lena laughed before she could stop herself. It surprised her every time now how Caleb could make the apartment feel lighter simply by being terrible at ordinary things. That was dangerous. Not because he was charming in the easy way, he wasn't. He was too careful, too literal, too likely to alphabetize emotional chaos. But he asked before touching anything. He listened when Maddie spoke. He never treated Lena's exhaustion as failure. And Lena, against every survival instinct she had, was beginning to like the weight of him in the room. The final test came without warning. Maddie had been arranging plastic dinosaurs around the pancake plate when her hand stopped over a small blue brontosaurus. "Mom said this one looked like it had allergies," she whispered. The kitchen went quiet. Lena moved first, but Caleb caught her eye, not stopping her, only asking silently whether Maddie wanted space or rescue. Maddie's face crumpled. "I forgot her voice this morning." Lena's heart broke in a clean, familiar place. Caleb didn't say, "Don't cry." He didn't say, "You'll remember." He didn't offer some bright lie adults gave children because grief made them uncomfortable. He simply sat on the floor beside Maddie, his back against the cabinet, long legs awkwardly folded. "That's a scary feeling," he said. Maddie nodded, crying harder now. "My mom used to sing off-key," Caleb added after a moment. "For a while I forgot exactly how it sounded. Then one day I remembered because someone dropped a pan in the cafeteria, and it was almost the same note." Maddie gave a wet, confused laugh. Lena stood by the stove holding the spatula too tightly. Caleb stayed there, quiet, patient, present. Maddie eventually leaned against Lena's knee, but her small socked foot touched Caleb's shoe, as if checking whether he was still there. He was. That night, after Maddie finally fell asleep, Lena and Caleb sat on the metal steps of the fire escape. The Seattle air smelled like rain and somebody's burned toast. Lena wrapped both hands around a mug of tea gone lukewarm. "My mother loved us," she said. "That's the part people don't know what to do with." Caleb looked at her. She wasn't neglectful in the simple way. She made birthday pancakes shaped like hearts. She kept every drawing. She also disappeared into bad relationships and worse jobs and promises she meant when she made them. Lena swallowed. "I spent half my childhood waiting for her to come back from things she said would only take an hour. And Maddie, she won't do that." Lena's voice hardened. "Not if I can help it." Caleb was quiet for so long she thought he would not answer. Then he said, "After my parents died, I was with a foster family for 9 months. They said they were thinking long-term." Lena turned toward him. "I believed them," he said. "Packed my books in alphabetical order because I thought that made me seem easier to keep." The words landed softly and terribly. "What happened?" "They changed their minds." He looked out over the parking lot. They weren't bad people. That almost made it worse. They were overwhelmed. They cried when I left. I remember thinking their sadness didn't do much for my suitcase. Lena's shoulder touched his. Neither of them moved away. "So you don't promise," she said. "Not to children. Not unless I know. And adults?" His mouth curved without quite becoming a smile. "Adults are only slightly less terrifying." For a moment, there was almost a kiss in the space between them. Not an impulsive one, not the kind that solved anything, just the quiet recognition that something had begun, inconveniently and without permission. Then Lena's phone buzzed. Tasha. "Nora may call the hospital to verify support network." Caleb's involvement could raise questions. Boss, subordinate, boundaries, power dynamic. "Please don't accidentally become a workplace ethics seminar," Lena showed him. Caleb read it twice. His expression changed. "This is a real concern," he said. Lena's stomach dropped. "You're backing out." "No, you just made the face people make before they leave politely." "I'm not leaving, but we have to be transparent. I'm your director. If I support your guardianship assessment, Nora needs to know exactly what my role is and isn't. And if transparency makes everything look worse, then we deal with that." Lena stood. "You keep saying the truth like it's some clean thing. It isn't. Sometimes the truth makes good people look suspicious and polished people look safe." "I know. Do you?" Before he could answer, a knock came at the apartment door. Elaine Porter stood outside holding a gift bag with tissue paper shaped into perfect silver peaks. Her eyes moved from Lena's flushed face to Caleb's flower-stained sleeve, then to the green dinosaur sticker Maddie had pressed onto his chest. "Well," Elaine said quietly. "This is helpful to understand." Lena stepped forward. "Elaine, you're staging this." "No, you have your boss here on a Sunday, covered in pancake batter, playing house before an assessment." Caleb removed the sticker slowly, as if that might restore professionalism. It did not. Elaine's voice stayed controlled, which made it sharper. "I'll have to tell Nora what I saw." Lena's temper snapped. "Of course you will, because you see one messy apartment and decide Maddie belongs in your guest room. I see a young woman drowning and calling it devotion. Maddie doesn't want to leave. Maddie is 8. She also doesn't want bedtime. Adults are supposed to know when love isn't enough." He only said, carefully, "You're right that this can look unclear. I'll explain my involvement honestly to Nora." Lena stared at him, betrayed. Then Caleb added, "But what you're wrong about is this. Lena's love for Maddie is not a performance. I've seen performance. This is exhaustion, fear, competence under pressure. Those are different things." Elaine's face tightened, but she said nothing. Later, after Elaine left and Maddie was asleep again, Lena would still be angry that Caleb had not defeated her. But beneath the anger, something harder to deny settled in. He had chosen the truth. Not because it was safe. Because Maddie deserved a life no one had to fake. By Monday morning, the apartment looked clean enough to be hopeful, imperfect enough to be honest. There was still a purple crayon mark on the kitchen table. The bookshelf Caleb had fixed leaned faintly left. Maddie's medication box sat beside a stack of school forms. Lena's revised shift schedule and support network list were taped to the refrigerator with a dinosaur magnet missing one eye. Lena had cleaned until midnight, then stopped when Maddie asked if making the apartment too perfect meant they were pretending again. So the toy velociraptors stayed on the table. At 9 exactly, Nora Fields knocked. She was not cold. That would have been easier. She was calm, observant, and serious in the way of someone who had seen children placed with relatives who loved them and still failed them 6 months later. Elaine arrived 5 minutes afterward with a folder of her own. Photographs of Maddie's potential bedroom, school district information, her work schedule, household budget. Lena's stomach tightened. Caleb stood near the kitchen, not beside Lena like a partner, not across from Nora like a lawyer, just present. Nora noticed everything. She asked about transportation, bedtime, night shifts, emergency contacts, after-school care, counseling, rent, medical appointments, grief support. Lena answered too quickly, tripping over details she knew by heart, because fear made her sound unprepared. Tasha sat on the couch, hands folded, unusually quiet. When Nora turned to Caleb, he straightened. "I'm Dr. Caleb Warren, Director of Pediatric Services at St. Catherine's," he said. "I am not Lena's husband, fiancé, or romantic partner. I do not live here. My role is limited to professional support and, if approved, participation in a broader support network with clear boundaries." Lena felt the room absorb that sentence. Elaine's eyes flickered. Nora wrote something down. Then she looked at Lena. "Miss Brooks, I need to ask something directly. Are you trying to build a sustainable environment for Maddie, or are you trying to create the appearance of a family system strong enough to pass this assessment?" The question hit exactly where Lena had hidden the truth. For one wild second, she saw the easier path. She could say Caleb was more than support. She could imply something serious, something nearly permanent, a future, a ring not yet bought, a family forming just in time. Tasha looked at her, afraid. Caleb said nothing. Elaine spoke first. "Lena loves Maddie. I don't question that. But love doesn't pay rent. It doesn't change a hospital schedule. It doesn't replace sleep. I'm not trying to punish Lena. I'm trying to make sure Maddie doesn't become another promise someone couldn't keep." The worst part was that Elaine was not entirely wrong. Lena looked toward Maddie's bedroom door. Behind it, her sister was waiting with Mrs. Bell from next door, probably holding the stegosaurus too tightly. Then Lena stopped performing. "I thought about lying," she said. The room went still. Lena's voice shook, but she kept going. "On Friday night, I asked Dr. Warren to pretend to be my husband because I was terrified. I thought if I looked more stable, more complete, you'd let Maddie stay." Nora's pen paused. "I know that was wrong. I know it matters. But I need you to understand why I was scared." Lena swallowed. "I am tired. My apartment is small. My schedule is hard. Sometimes I cry in my car before I come upstairs because I don't want Maddie to think she is the reason I'm exhausted." Elaine looked down. "But I'm not asking you to trust a fantasy anymore. I changed my schedule. Tasha is my emergency contact. Mrs. Bell can cover short gaps. Maddie is enrolled in after-school care. I have a counselor lined up. Dr. Warren is professional support with boundaries. I have a payment plan for the overdue bills, and I wrote out the budget even though it embarrasses me." Her eyes burned. "Maddie doesn't need me to pretend to be a perfect mother. She needs to see that adults can be scared and still not leave." Nora said nothing for a long moment. Then she asked to speak with Maddie alone. When Maddie came out later, her cheeks were blotchy, but her chin was up. "I want Lena," she said, "because she knows when I say I'm okay and I'm not okay." Her eyes moved to Caleb. "He's not my daddy. He said he wouldn't fake that, but he doesn't promise dumb things." Caleb looked away first. Nora's temporary decision came that afternoon. Lena would retain supervised temporary guardianship for 90 days, with documented proof that the support network was functioning. Elaine would have scheduled visitation and remain part of Maddie's extended care plan. It was not a victory with music. It was permission to keep trying. Elaine objected at first, then stopped when Maddie asked if Tacoma could be, sometimes, not forever. Something in Elaine's face softened around the edges. The second consequence arrived before sunset. The hospital had been contacted. Caleb's involvement raised questions about boundaries, authority, and possible favoritism. He requested that Lena be reassigned to another supervisor and removed himself from any direct personnel review involving her. "It's the cleanest option," he told Lena outside her apartment. "You shouldn't have to pay for helping me. I'm paying for making sure the help doesn't cost you later." Lena held the decision letter against her chest. Maddie was still inside, still home, but everything felt fragile. Caleb looked tired now, less like a director and more like a man who had chosen a difficult truth and accepted its bill. "You didn't need a husband today," he said softly. "You needed the truth with a witness." Lena looked at him and felt something frighteningly tender move through her. Maddie was safe for now. Caleb was not hers. and her heart, inconvenient and reckless, was already in trouble. 3 months passed, not like a movie montage, but like real life. Slowly, unevenly, with paperwork, missed alarms, grocery lists, and Maddie refusing counseling twice before deciding the therapist's office had acceptable snacks. Lena did not win everything at once. She proved things one ordinary day at a time. The support network held. Tasha picked Maddie up twice when Lena's shift ran long. Mrs. Bell covered one emergency evening and made soup so salty Maddie called it ocean stew. The after-school program helped. The counselor helped more, though Maddie insisted therapy was just talking with better chairs. Elaine became part of Maddie's life without taking over. Some weekends, Maddie went to Tacoma and came back with clean laundry, library books, and complaints that Elaine's guest room was too beige for emotional development. Elaine learned to ask what Maddie wanted before deciding what was best. It was not perfect. It was better. And Caleb stayed careful. He was no longer Lena's direct supervisor. He did not appear at the apartment every evening or turn himself into a replacement father through sheer romantic timing. He kept the boundaries he had promised. He attended support meetings when invited. He helped Lena find a grief counselor who took their insurance. He came to Maddie's school dinosaur presentation because Maddie had handed him an invitation that said, in purple marker, "You may come if you are punctual." He arrived 7 minutes early. That mattered to Maddie more than flowers would have. Trust, Lena learned, did not always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it looked like a man sitting in a folding chair too small for him, listening very seriously to an 8-year-old explain why velociraptors were misunderstood by cinema. One Saturday morning, Caleb finally made pancakes that looked almost round. Maddie inspected them like a building code officer. 7 out of 10. Caleb frowned. That's an improvement. They still look too hospital-shaped. Tasha, leaning against the counter with coffee, nodded. Congratulations, doctor. You've officially upgraded from fake husband candidate to approved adult with a suspiciously organized calendar. I was never a fake husband candidate, Caleb said. Emotionally, you had an application pending. Lena laughed, and this time she did not feel guilty for it. That was new too. After another late shift, Lena found Caleb outside the hospital, standing near the entrance with his coat folded over one arm. It was raining lightly, the kind of Seattle rain that seemed less like weather and more like an opinion. No emergency? She asked. No paperwork? No court update? No. No pancake-related medical crisis? Not currently. She studied him, cautious but smiling. Then why are you standing here? Caleb looked more nervous than he had during the assessment. I wanted to ask whether I could take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not as support network, not as documentation, not as anyone's pretend anything. Lena's heart did something unprofessional. I'll only say yes if the date does not involve court forms, social workers, guardianship plans, or experimental pancakes. I can meet approximately 75% of those conditions. Caleb, there may be a small binder in my car. She stared at him. I won't bring it into the restaurant. Lena laughed so hard she had to cover her face. Yes, she said finally, but if I see one tab divider, I'm leaving. Their first date did not fix all the complicated things between them. It did not erase grief, work schedules, old fear, or the fact that Maddie still sometimes woke up crying for a mother whose voice came and went in memory. But it began without a lie. A week later, Maddie presented them with a handwritten document at the kitchen table. At the top, in large, uneven letters, it read, "Not husband agreement." Lena went still. Maddie, it's legally important, Maddie said. Caleb accepted the paper with grave respect. The rules were simple. Caleb was not allowed to pretend to be Lena's husband. He was not allowed to promise to stay if he planned to disappear. He had to improve pancake shape. He was allowed to have dinner with Lena if he did not make her cry in the bad way. Lena's face burned. Caleb read every line carefully, then signed his name at the bottom. You're taking this very seriously, Lena said. It appears binding. Maddie watched them both. Does this mean we're family now? Lena's throat tightened. She knelt beside her sister. Family isn't something you become just because people sign a paper. Caleb capped the pen. It's something people prove by coming back. A lot. Maddie considered this. Then she said, "My school performance is next Tuesday." Caleb took out his phone. "What time?" And the next Tuesday, he was there. He sat in the front row of the elementary school auditorium, too tall for the tiny chair, holding a program covered in cartoon dinosaurs. Lena sat beside him, her shoulder brushing his sleeve. Maddie stood on stage wearing cardboard Stegosaurus plates and scanning the crowd until she found them. Caleb raised one hand. Maddie smiled. No one was pretending anymore. Love had not begun when Lena needed a husband by Monday. It began when Caleb asked, "Why me?" and then spent enough ordinary Tuesdays becoming the answer. Before we go, let's sit with one truth this story leaves behind. Lena almost lost Maddie because she believed she needed to look like the perfect guardian. Caleb almost missed the chance to love because he believed staying distant was safer than risking disappointment. But life rarely asks us to be perfect. More often, it asks us to be present. The people who change our lives aren't always the ones who make grand promises. They're the ones who show up on ordinary Tuesdays, the ones who answer the phone, the ones who keep coming back long after the crisis is over. Sometimes love isn't proven by what someone says when you're falling apart. It's proven by who is still there when everything becomes normal again. And that brings us to today's question. Have you ever had someone earn your trust not through words, but through consistency? Or have you ever been the person trying your best to hold a family together while feeling like you weren't enough? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of the people who matter to you, and remember, family isn't always the people who promise to stay. Sometimes it's the people who simply do. See you in the next story.